Welcome to our 5 on 5. Pleased to be joined in studio today by Oregon Secretary of State Shemia Fagan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm delighted to be here, and I apologize for my voice. I'm a youth basketball coach, and so I was coaching a 3-on-3 tournament over the weekend. So I'll do my best to be able to hear me.
You sound great. Love that you're a coach. Appreciate that. What is your biggest concern about Oregon's election system less than 2 months from Election Day?
The spread of false information about the security of our elections is the election challenge of our time. Oregon elections have been and are secure, and vote by mail has worked seamlessly for over 20 years here in Oregon. But recently, because of false and misinformation, we have people all of a sudden questioning that. And so rebuilding that trust and telling people what we already know, that vote by mail is safe and secure and accessible, really is the challenge of our time today and probably going forward for the years to come.
In May, Clackamas County printed thousands of ballots with misprinted barcodes that couldn't be tabulated by those tabulating machines. You're in charge of the state, not Clackamas County or any county, but what are you doing to ensure something like this doesn't happen again?
So there are best practices that all 36 county clerks are supposed to engage in. Clackamas didn't in that one instance, and we see what happens when they don't follow the best practices that are set out from the directives from our office. And so obviously we're working very closely with Clackamas County this time around to make sure that the November election goes smoothly. But I'll also note that for the May election, every county conducts a post-election audit. We direct all 36 counties to do post-election audits before I certify the official results. And we actually at Clackamas do extra audits on their election results to really reinforce and rebuild that trust in those election results in Clackamas County.
You told Willamette Week that you ran as a progressive Democrat, and yet two of your most controversial decisions so far, quote, mostly pissed off Democrats and progressives, end quote. How do you deal with the outside pressure of your position while still holding what I imagine are some lofty political goals for the future?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm a basketball coach, so I'm used to pressure. You just do the job. Even though I ran, under the Democratic Party, I always said that I would be a nonpartisan Secretary of State, and that's what I've done. And I know that what Oregonians expect is that I'm going to make the same decision following the Constitution and the laws of Oregon, regardless of the political party of the person affected, or regardless of maybe the issue or the ballot measure, whether I support it or not in substance, that I'm going to follow the law and be consistent. And that's the type of consistency and objectivity the Oregonians deserve, and that's what they'll keep getting from me as Secretary of State.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have much more with Secretary of State Fagan in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Oregon Secretary of State Shemia Fagan. You participated in a town hall with State Senator Jeff Golden last night about improving government. You're a former legislator yourself. What's the biggest misconception you hear about state government?
Well, the audits division is really what we were highlighting in that, and that's why Senator Golden and I had that town hall together, because he called me one day and said, where's the accountability? Who's, checking up on this work that state agencies are supposed to do? Legislators pass law, they allocate money, what comes next? And so we had a good conversation about the audits division. Under the Oregon Constitution, I'm our state's chief auditor. So I brought our audits director down to Medford. We had an awesome town hall meeting, and he probably took up 2/3 of the town hall. The citizens of Jackson County and Medford were so engaged asking about audits, and not technical audits or financial audits, performance audits. How are we making sure that state agencies and state laws are actually working best for the people who need them the most?
You're closing in now on 2 years in office. What audit are you most proud of from the audits division?
I mean, the audit that I'm actually most proud of is one that happened right before I became Secretary of State, but we've continued to follow up on it, which is an audit of our prescription drug monitoring program in Oregon. I've experienced this personally in my own life. My mom battled addiction for most of my life growing up, and we have an opioid crisis here in this state. And the Oregon prescription drug monitoring program audit, done under my predecessor, actually Secretary Dennis Richardson, but then we have followed up on that to make sure those recommendations are followed, found that while dentists and other doctors were, being monitored about what sort of opioids, veterinarians were not. And they found that people experiencing addiction were actually hurting their pets on purpose to then have their pets prescribed an opioid so they could then abuse their own pets' opioids. And so we found that, in our auditors found that information and made that recommendation. We need to add veterinarians to that prescription drug monitoring program. And so I want to give credit to my predecessor, the late Secretary Dennis Richardson, for following on that audit. The audits director he had is the same one that we have now, and then we've been following up on that to make sure those recommendations are completed.
Central Point resident Dennis Richardson, yes, we know him well down here. Of course, this fall you're focusing on the election, but is there anything the Audits Division is working on right now that you can tell us about?
Sure, we're actually about to announce, this actually will probably be the first time this is announced, but we want to respond to the times, and we are actually, with what happened with the Dobbs decision, we're going to be doing an audit of reproductive health services in Oregon to make sure that folks are getting the access to those services that we need. And then with, of course, the shooting in Uvalde, I'm a mom of public school students, and I want to make sure that our schools are as safe as possible and that we keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people in accordance with Oregon law and the Constitution. And so we are going to be announcing an audit of our red flag law here in Oregon to make sure that it's working. And then also there's a bipartisan national bill passed to give other states money to set up red flag laws. And so we'd like our audit to also serve as a blueprint for other states to make sure that if they're setting up a red flag law, here's how you do that in a way that's effective and keeps your community safe.
Thank you so much for joining us today while you're here in the Rogue Valley. Appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.